Welcome to Senior Moments. This episode sponsored by our good friends at the Blue Mountain Collective, the first and finest medical dispensary in San Andreas, located at 692 Marshall Avenue. Open 7 days a week from 9:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. Shop online at www.bluemountaincollective.com or call us at 209-754-3289 and try our free delivery service. Hello, welcome to Senior Moments, the show where we talk about all things senior, the good, the bad, and the utterly ridiculous. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So today I have Celeste Mata with me from the Resource Connection Calaveras Crisis Center. Welcome,
Yes.
Celeste.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you here. I think this is a really important topic that we need to talk about.
Yes, it is.
So, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Yes.
And do you have some activities that you have going on for that?
We do. We have some outreach that we're going to do for the month of October. We actually have an RV that the Resource Connection purchased about a year and a half ago. And we're going to be using that for our outreach in October. And I have some dates of where we're going to be in October.
Oh, good.
So October 5th, we will be in Copperopolis. We'll be up there with the food bank also.
Okay.
So this is going to be all of the first for us. We've never done this before.
Okay.
And we'll be in Copperopolis from 9 to 11.
And where in Copperopolis?
We're going to be near the Armory.
Okay.
Okay. So October 11th, we will be in West Point, and we'll be up there with the food bank and Women and Infant Children, one of our other programs.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And then that's from 9 to 3 on a Wednesday. And October 18th, we're going to be at Community Covenant in San Andreas.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, and we'll be there for their Wednesday night dinner.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll be parked in the parking lot there, and we'll that is going to be from like 4 o'clock to 6.
Oh, nice.
And then we're going to be October 24th, we're going to be at the Veterans Hall in Valley Springs.
Okay.
And we'll be there from about 9 to 3, and that's a Tuesday. We do have a plan for Murphy's, but it's not set yet on what date is going to work. But we're going to be up there at Faith Lutheran Church.
Okay.
And it's either going to be October 24th or 26th. I'm not sure yet. We've got to set that. We also have a booth going on at Burson Church, the Full Gospel Church in Burson, and they're doing their fall festival, and we'll have a booth set up there.
Oh, that's nice.
And what we're going to do is we're going to have information on all of the Resource Connection programs.
Okay.
So not just the Crisis Center program.
All right. So why don't we talk about those programs that you have going on at the Crisis Center?
Okay. So the Crisis Center is a program under the umbrella of the Resource Connection.
Okay.
And under the Crisis Center, along with the Crisis Center, is our Children's Advocacy Center in Valley Springs. So the Crisis Center offers services for domestic violence and sexual assault victims and survivors.
Okay.
We offer peer counseling. We offer restraining orders, help with restraining orders. We offer court accompaniment, any kind of, if it has to do with anything with the restraining order, we go to court with them.
Okay.
We have a hospital accompaniment where if somebody has to go to the hospital and then they may need an exam or something like that, we are there for them. And we also have a 24-hour hotline. We have a shelter. We have a program that goes into the schools. It's our community outreach.
Okay.
And they go into the schools and they talk about bullying and different things like that, teen dating.
Okay.
And then we have, there's services that are like within the services that we can provide. We try to provide court accompaniment and anything that has to do if there's say a criminal case that goes along with it.
Sure.
We can go to court with them. And then our Children's Advocacy Center is a place for child victims
Okay.
that can go for, they go for forensic interviews there. They can also get therapy there.
Okay.
So the Crisis Center does a lot more than sometimes that it looks like that we do.
Sure.
And we're involved in a lot.
Yeah, I pretty much thought the crisis center was somewhere that a woman who is being abused could go and stay and get help. But I didn't realize that you offered all these other things.
Yes, and we offer services to men also.
I know they're the forgotten,
They're the forgotten
abused.
group. Yes,
Yeah,
they are. Yes, they are. There's, um, we we pay attention to the arrest logs. We pay attention to see um, who's arrested and how many of them are female abusers.
And have you noticed that change? Has there been a change in the number of female abusers over the years? Are there more female abusers now than there used to be? I'm just
Well, I've been
curious.
there 22 years, and yes, I've seen an increase in it. I don't know, there's many reasons that can cause it, but I think what I want to just say is if you're a victim of abuse of any kind, you are welcome in our door. If you have sexual abuse, domestic violence, elder abuse, you're welcome there. And we actually offer shelter to men also and their families.
Okay.
And that's one thing that we changed in 2006 was our name because we were known as the Calaveras Women's Crisis Center.
That's right.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And that limited people to want to come to us because, well, it's just for women, and that was it. And that we had always helped men, it just wasn't out there, and men are more reluctant to seek help.
I would imagine because it's an ego thing as well, because they're the man and they shouldn't be abused, but you know, men are supposed to not hit women, and so what do if they have a female partner who just is physically out of control and
Right.
they can't hit back?
They don't. Many of them have been taught through generations, you don't hit a woman.
Exactly.
And you don't hit anyone. That's the point, is you don't
Right.
hit anyone. And so it is getting better. We've had quite a few men in the last, it's actually increased in the last few years. The word's out there, I think, that we do help.
That's what I was going to say, is I think that the issue has gotten more light on it, and people are learning that it's not just the females that are being abused, it's the males as well.
Exactly.
It's a, unfortunately, equal opportunity event.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes,
But
it is.
for seniors, what do you consider abuse, the different kinds of abuses for seniors? Let's just talk about that, because it's not always somebody that's hitting them.
Right. It's very similar to domestic violence. It's the same types of abuse, but then there's more things. There's neglect.
Right.
There's financial abuse. But you still see the same physical, mental, verbal abuse. And this happens quite often. We see it quite a bit. And from what we see, the seniors are very reluctant to come and get help because a lot of times the people that are abusing them are the closest to them. They're either their child, their grandchild, their sister, their aunt, maybe sometimes their husband or wife. So they're more reluctant because they're in a situation where they don't want to be there. They don't want that situation to be going on, and they just want it to get better. And sometimes it doesn't. It just escalates.
And it's understandable to me, as you're getting older, and maybe you're not as physically competent as you used to be, it's scary. It's scary to know that the person that you should be able to count on to help you in your time of vulnerability is actually the person that you're afraid of.
Yes, exactly.
And at the same time, if that person isn't there, then who's going to be there?
Who's going to take care of them? Do they have any other relatives? Sometimes it could be a caretaker that's abusing them, and they don't have anybody else to turn to. And 1 in 10 forms of elder abuse are only reported. Only 1 in 10.
And is that more or less than the average for, say, a woman with a family who's has a domestic violence situation at home? Do you think that there are more elders being abused as opposed to younger people?
I would say that there's more elders being abused that aren't reporting, that we don't know about.
Okay, that's what yeah, exactly.
That we don't know about, because there's a lot of abuse that happens with spouses or partners also that don't get reported either, or they don't even, not even so much as reported to law enforcement, but to get help, reach out for help, because they're afraid. They're afraid that if they come to get help, then it's going to have to be reported.
There's that, and I think the idea that your whole life is going to get turned upside down. You know, you can possibly no longer have your home. You no longer have a steady situation for your kids. I mean, it's very overwhelming when you think about it.
A lot of the people that don't come in for quite a while and finally decide, I need help, there's nothing that's going to help this unless I help myself. They're in a situation where they're not working. They're at home possibly with no transportation. The transportation's been taken away from them.
Right.
They're followed. Their time is monitored. They can't go to the store without being timed. And sometimes abusers go with them. They don't have any time alone. And it's very hard for them to reach out for help.
It's a scary situation. There's no doubt about that. I'm really glad that you're going into the schools, though, because I think it's important. I think when I was growing up, I just was taught to put up with a lot of stuff that I shouldn't have had to put up with. And I'm really glad that the schools, it's already starting in school, that people are being taught to treat each other with respect and kindness.
Right.
And not just walk all over their feelings, I guess. And also to be more aware of what actually being a bully is.
Exactly, that it's not okay.
Exactly.
And sometimes a bully learns this at home, and so they bring it to school. So we know that there's an underlying problem here.
Right.
And just teaching these children empowerment, that they can speak up and they can say something and tell somebody that they're being bullied.
And be believed.
And be believed. That's the most important thing, is that they're believed.
Yeah.
That is the most important thing with any victim, is that they're being believed.
I agree. And you had on here, so the Pep Talks, and that's for parents? What do you do for the Pep Talks?
The Pep Talks is something that's done through our outreach.
Uh-huh.
I have not been involved with those Pep Talks, but Liz Gilbert,
Uh-huh.
our outreach person,
Okay.
she does those, and we have a really good team that goes into the school. Liz does most of it now, but Yvonne Fout used to do it with her, and she is involved a little bit. But Liz is doing this on her own now, and she is involved in a lot.
Oh, that's amazing.
So, and she's amazing. She's just so enthusiastic.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, with your outreach programs, so we know what you're doing in October, but it seems like you've got a lot of things that are going on a regular basis. So are these programs, the educational programs, say if you're in the schools, are you going year-round? Well, as long as school's in session.
Yes. She has a schedule.
Okay.
That she goes to different schools at different times, and then different classrooms, and that's a schedule that she changes every year.
Okay.
She doesn't always go to the same classroom every year, and she may skip, a year because they had it the year before.
Sure, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But, yeah. But I love our outreach program. I think it's just one of the best things that we could possibly do for the community.
I think it is too. And then you're mandatory reporters, correct?
We are. So there are certain circumstances that we are mandatory reporters, and that would be if a victim is under the age of 18.
Okay.
Okay. If there is child abuse involved, if we know that there is abuse going on in the home, then the children are always at risk. So we do have to report that. We have to report elder abuse. And we also have to report if a person states that they're going to hurt themselves or someone else.
Okay.
So those are the situations that we would have to report.
Okay.
And then that's when another agency gets involved.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
Other agencies get involved over that, yes.
I think that's part of the problem. I think that it's not a problem, per se. It's part of the reluctance that people have to come to you is that they're not afraid to come to you, but they're afraid of all these other agencies that might get involved, and they already don't have any control over their lives, and now they could have this whole group of agencies that have control over their lives, so it's very scary.
And they're very scared if they go to get help and then nothing happens. If nothing happens, then they're stuck. And then the abuser then knows, hey, she reached out for help and nobody helped her.
So now I've really got her. Yeah.
And there's some circumstances that does happen because of, it may not rise to the level that law enforcement will do anything. And a lot of times it's mutual. It can be mutual. And then it's like, okay, what do we do here? What do we do with this? We've got two people abusing each other.
Right.
And then law enforcement has to make that decision. Nobody wants Child Protective Services involved in their lives.
No.
So that prevents them from coming. But actually having Child Protective Services is not always bad. It can be good because they can give you services.
They can give you services, and maybe all it takes is for the abuser to know that somebody else is watching, and that somebody else that has more power than them is the one that's doing the watching.
Exactly, and it's their decisions at that point.
Right.
Not always the person that may have sought help.
Correct.
So I wanted to kind of concentrate on the elder abuse.
Okay.
Okay, so since we're talking about the other agencies also, we have the agency within the Health and Human Services, which is Adult Protective Services.
Okay.
And we work with them, and we sometimes get referrals from them, and many times we refer to them. But an elder is considered 60 and over.
Okay.
But for mandated reporting, it's 65 and over, and 65 and over for a restraining order, an elder abuse restraining order.
Okay.
But that is one of the services that we do offer is elder abuse restraining orders. We also offer just peer counseling. Sometimes they just want to talk to somebody.
And how does the peer counseling work?
Our advocates are trained. We have a training and they're certified.
Okay.
Well, it's a certificate that they get for doing the training. It's a training that they get trained in domestic violence and sexual assault.
Okay.
So they're not professional therapists or anything like that. They're peer counselors.
Okay.
But they do have to take some training.
Sure.
To get that title of
And
advocate.
Are you matching up age groups so that my peer counselor would be approximately my generation?
I wish I could. We try to.
Okay.
In our office, we don't have a lot of young people in our office.
Okay.
But we have in the past when we have had younger advocates in the office. We do try and do that. We'll take a young advocate to work with, a teenager or something like that, younger.
Sure.
Instead of someone like me who would be more like a grandma to them.
No, and I guess it just depends on what, yeah, I was gonna say that they would relate better to the person closer to their age, or they might relate better to someone that's much older than them because they are like their grandma.
That is true. That
So,
is true. Or maybe somebody their mother's age,
yeah,
just because maybe they do have a really good relationship with their mom and they'd rather talk to somebody
sure,
who is their mom's age or older. So
yeah. Well, I have always felt that finding a therapist, and I'll be honest, I've gone to a couple therapists over the years, and there were two that I really connected well with, and then there were two that I didn't connect with, and so I stayed with the ones I connected with. The ones that I didn't connect with, nothing bad about them. I just didn't connect with them, so I found someone else.
exactly.
And I think that's really important to realize that you're not going to connect with everybody.
That is true.
Not on this kind of a level. I mean, you can probably connect with everybody out in the world where you're talking about the weather and how much gas is today and that sort of thing. But when you need to talk about something personal to your life that's that important, it's always going to be.
Exactly. And we're open with that. I mean, I think that everybody needs to see what fits them the best, what type of a personality fits them to talk to. If it's okay if you decide you don't want to be with a therapist or a peer counselor, it's okay, and we're open to that in the office. If there is somebody that says, "Hey, I really can't relate to her. Do you have another advocate that I can meet with?" Of course, that we're gonna offer that. Nobody's gonna get their feelings hurt or anything like that.
And do you have occasions where the advocate is saying, I don't think I'm connecting well with this person, maybe we need to try Susie instead?
Exactly. That's exactly what I um, say to the advocates. If you're having a hard time connecting with this person, offer her another advocate that you may know that neither one of you are connecting.
Right.
And then say, hey, would you like to, have another advocate? I encourage that because it can go both ways. It really can.
I think it can, and I think that it would be hard for someone who has been abused to be strong enough or feel confident enough to say, I'm sorry, I'm just not connecting with you. Is there someone else that I can talk to? I think that would be really hard because it's already hard just coming to talk to somebody and making that decision. And coming from a place where if you say you don't like something, you could get hit, it would be really hard to. So I'm glad that the advocates are also aware and that they can.
And that it's okay.
Yes.
And it's okay.
And it's okay.
And that's part of the empowerment, though, being able to say, I don't get along with this person, I would like to see somebody else.
Right.
That's what we're trying to do, is empower our survivors, victims, to be able to speak their mind and not worry about there being a consequence for it.
Or at least a out of proportion consequence. I mean, because sometimes there are consequences, but that's life.
But nobody's going to get mad at you. Or
exactly.
like that.
Exactly. You make a choice to take a turn down a street that's in one way, and you're going the wrong way. There's a consequence for that, but you're not going to end up with a black eye or in the hospital.
Right. Exactly.
So that's life.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, do you have a group that meets down there too? Is there like a regular?
We have two support groups. We have one on Monday night from 5 to 6:30, and it's a domestic violence support group. And we have that one in the evening for people who work and can't make it, and it is done by Zoom.
All right.
And then we also have one on Wednesday mornings from 10 to 11:30, and that is done by Zoom and in person.
Okay.
So you can still come to the office and go to a DV support group, and everybody can come who is a victim of domestic violence are welcome to come to the meetings.
Okay.
Attend them, participate, and the morning one is real good for the parents who have children in school.
Sure.
And they can attend We just try to accommodate for both
Right.
evening and day.
And do you have people that are participating in that group that are still in the situation, in the violent situation?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah. Or just have one foot out and one foot in,
Right.
trying to leave
Right.
the situation, or have just left the situation. A lot of people don't realize that when you get out of a domestic violence relationship, that is the most dangerous part of the relationship because there's no more control. And
That is the scary part.
yeah, it's scary. It is a very scary time.
It is.
And it's good to have that support and talk to other people who are going through the same thing or who have been through the same thing.
And it's very real. I mean, you hear on the news about the person that gets shot on the courthouse steps because their spouse was not going to let them get divorced or
Right.
not going to let them do whatever was going to happen in that court proceeding. So they just decide to kill them instead.
One of the things, red flags as we call them, is when somebody says, if I can't have you, nobody's going to have you. And it happens. It happens all the time. And we see it on TV, you
Yes.
know. Just that particular time of being the abusers doesn't have any control over the situation once you've left.
That's correct.
So the texts are going to come in, the phone calls are going to come in. It's going to escalate. And it's going to escalate from, I love you so much, to, I'm going to kill you.
Yes.
Especially if they're not getting an answer back or they're not getting the response that they want to hear.
And I think any engagement in that situation, I don't know that unless you want to go back into it, I don't think there's any benefit to having that engagement because all it does is give your abuser another chance to get at you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I've told you, a victim sometimes leaves a situation 7 times before they ever finally leave. That's the average for a person in a domestic violence relationship.
That's amazing. But I understand it. I understand it because
Yes.
abusers are really good at being apologizing and they're never going to do it again and they cry and they beg and they know how to get their little hooks into people and how to get the response that they want.
Right, it's called the cycle of violence.
Okay. So
and that's the honeymoon cycle right there when they're apologizing and they'll never do it again and I love you so much and everything's going to be fine and a lot of promises are made.
Right.
The promises are never kept, very seldom kept, and then it goes right back into the first phase, which is the tension building stage. There's a tension building stage, the explosion, and then the honeymoon cycle.
And do you think that this cycle gets worse? So that you have the honeymoon phase, but then when the abuse starts again, it's even worse and the person is ratcheting in even further to keep more control?
Yes, it is. And a cycle that can start on a year cycle, maybe it takes a year to cycle through this. As time goes on, that cycle gets smaller.
Okay.
Smaller. So after 10 years, it could be happening every week, every day.
Right.
Where it started out once a year. And then maybe once a month. So, yes, and it gets more intense.
And it's sneaky, I was with a person that, he beat me up on a regular basis for 10 years, and I look back on it, and I realized that there were a lot of things that I just don't care about, They're just not high of importance to me, so... there'd be things like, oh, he didn't like this dress, and I didn't care. I'd go put a different one on. I realized every time there was some little thing that I conceded on, that it was just one more piece of power that he was establishing over me. It's very sneaky, It doesn't happen overnight. They don't like
No,
start on Monday and Tuesday you're in the hospital.
right.
It's very gradual and all the little things,
It
like
is.
being dragged around the kitchen because I didn't know how to make coffee. Well, you know what? I didn't even drink coffee then. I thought it was funny. I thought the guy was out of his mind. It never occurred to me that this was the beginning of a pattern that would get worse and worse and worse.
Right. And I think a lot of people go into that because the situations don't start in a tension building stage. It starts in the honeymoon phase.
Right.
So you've got to remember there is a time where they're telling you all the things that you want to hear. Whether it's a male or female doing it.
Right.
I love you so much. I've never loved anybody the way I love you. I want to be with you every day. You get flowers, you get notes. They may buy you jewelry. And then all of a sudden, it starts going into that tension building stage. So in the very beginning, I always say they reel you in.
Right.
Because they're making all these promises to you, and depending on where you've come from,
Uh-huh.
What kind of a family you have, what it was like at home, or if you were in a relationship prior to that was abusive, and then you see this person come into your life who's promising you all these things, and it's different.
Right.
And then you can get into the same situation again, and then you're right back where you are. But nobody goes into a relationship to somebody who's going to abuse them the first day.
No, that's true.
Not a relationship anyway. It
No.
may happen once, but
Yeah.
not into a relationship. So they work on it. It's like I said, the cycle. They go through the cycle.
Sure.
And it happens to elders also. So our seniors are in situations where they're with their families. They're living with maybe a daughter or son, or even a grandchild, and that grandchild says, I'm going to help you with all of these things, and I can do this for you, and make all these promises.
Sure.
And then all of a sudden it turns into abuse. And there would be nothing worse to me as being a mother and grandmother to have to turn my child in for abuse.
Well, first of all, you don't want to believe it.
No.
So you make excuses. Oh,
Exactly.
he had a bad day at work.
Exactly.
He didn't mean to hit me. He didn't mean to do this. She didn't mean to do that.
Right.
Because you still love them.
Yes.
It's just the way it is.
And we've seen that many times where I just want them to behave.
Right.
I just want them to stop. And there are times where, there is no alternative than to do a restraining order against them. And a lot of times they think, oh, this will show them and this will make them better.
Right.
And it doesn't. It's just another thing. Then they're going to hold that against you.
Right.
Just like a regular domestic violence restraining order.
Well, it's just hard, especially when family's involved. Because
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to make a phone call that ends up putting my child in jail.
Exactly.
Or,
And it doesn't always have to be physical, emotional, verbal abuse. A lot of it is verbal abuse, but just a child being in your home, taking advantage of living at your home for free, eating the food that you provide, that you buy for free. There's so much more to it than just
physical
violence or financial. If we think of financial as, oh, they're getting into my bank accounts, but that's not all of it. It's the abusing the situation itself.
Sure.
I would think that, I would hope that my children or grandchildren would help me in a situation like that. They may be buying the groceries,
right?
Once in a while, helping out some, and that's not always the way it is. They get taken advantage of.
That is too bad. And I think it's important also to note that it's not one socioeconomic group that's affected more than another. It doesn't matter how much money there is in the family, domestic violence can still happen.
Yes, it does.
Um,
We see that in the news sometimes with famous people who
Right.
are in domestic violence. They have everything in the world, and they're in domestic violence relationships. We see it within football players, within the actors and actresses and musicians, all of it. They have all the money, and they're still,
getting abused.
getting abused.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I heard that it was Andy Rooney, whose relatives, he had gotten dementia, and they would still trot him out on stage, and make money off him, and then basically he was living in a room at home in this big house while everybody else is living off his money.
Right.
So yeah, it's
And a lot of times, sometimes, let's say not a lot of times, sometimes you can not have much. Maybe you don't have a job, maybe you don't have a car, things like that. And some people just think, well, that's who it happens to.
right.
And it's not true. It happens to everybody, no matter who you are, man, woman, what type, culture, anything.
I agree.
Whether you have a Ferrari or you have nothing, it happens.
And it happens behind closed doors.
Yes, it
It can look on the surface as if you're on the outside like, oh, look at that person. They must have a wonderful life, and they got this nice house, and they live in, this nice neighborhood, and once those doors are closed, you don't know what happens behind those doors.
That's exactly right.
So
Because people who abuse want the public to see them in a different light than what's
that
really
is
happening.
very true.
They're out there making, they make sure that you have everything and that people see
Yes.
that you have it. Whether it's a vehicle, whether it's a house, whether it's just being able to go out to dinner or things like that. They put on a persona of, I'm so wonderful.
Yes.
And then it's totally different at home behind closed doors.
Absolutely. And they can be the kindest person in public. And holy smokes, but they turn into someone else behind that door.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think it must be really difficult to reach the people, especially seniors, I guess, that need your services. Because if I'm being kind of stuck in my house and I can't go anywhere unless I've got this person with me that is doing the abusing, I just got to be really hard to reach those people. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, one of the things that we can do is reach out to like the senior center, things like that. But even so, if they're stuck in their house, they're not going to the senior center.
Right.
They've only got the people that are taking care of them, and unless somebody comes by or somebody actually, starts to suspect, say like a family member, another family member suspects something and then reports it, then law enforcement can do a welfare check on them. But unless something like that happens,
And even
we
then,
don't know.
yeah, they can go do the welfare check and have the person deny that anything's going on, because we're back to the same thing about why people aren't going to get help in the first place.
Right.
The fear, the
Yes.
isolation.
And then when law enforcement shows up at your door, and then you're thinking, oh, they're going to get in trouble, and then I'm going to be in trouble.
Exactly.
So
It is a tough situation, and I am very glad that you are in our community and doing the work you do.
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
So is there anything else that we haven't talked about today that we really should hit on?
Just thinking about that. I was going to mention that there is a special day in June that is for elder abuse awareness.
Okay.
And that is June 15th. And we have domestic violence awareness in October.
Okay.
And so our color is purple.
All right.
So we try to get out there and get the message out that we're here to help.
Okay.
And then June 15th, being Elder Abuse Awareness Day, their color is also purple.
Oh, good to know.
So I just thought I'd put that out there, that And then Domestic Violence Awareness Month actually started in 1987. That was the first time that they labeled it Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Okay.
So this has been going on for quite some time, and every year we do something.
That is good to know. Yes. And then I think there's usually some kind of event on June 15th. I think
There probably is. We have never done that. That was something that I just learned recently.
Okay.
But that I mentioned it to staff this morning, so that's something that we're going to probably work into what we do.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's really been nice to have you on today. I appreciate you.
I appreciate it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I have, but I think we've covered everything.
All right. Well, you know what? If you want to come back and we'll talk some more another time, we can always take this conversation up again.
I appreciate that. So April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month.
All right. So I guess I'll have to see you in April.
That's right.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody that's listening to this podcast. Please like and follow us wherever you listen to your podcasts. And join us next time. We look forward to having you with us again. Welcome to Senior Moments. This episode sponsored by our good friends at the Blue Mountain Collective, the first and finest medical dispensary in San Andreas, located at 692 Marshall Avenue. Open 7 days a week from 9:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. Shop online at www.bluemountaincollective.com or call us at 209-754-3289 and try our free delivery service.